Egypt has about 3,500 tanks. Israel has 2,500 tanks. Egypt has a larger air force, and that's why Israel has to be always acutely aware that when we're talking about Egypt versus Israel, we're also in a region of 23 Arab states, in a region also where there's Russia and China sending weapons to Iran.
I'm looking forward to a war with Egypt, that's the truth. The Sinai belongs to Israel. The Sinai is a part of the Promised Land.
Welcome to the Israel Guys and the Land of Israel Network, where we believe that in a world of anti-Israel propaganda and Jew hatred, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Guys, so happy to have you with us this week here with Joshua Waller, Ari Abramowitz, Jeremy Gimpel. Guys, happy to be on the Mount of Blessing with you in the biblical heartland of Israel once again. Please make sure you subscribe, follow along, whatever platform you're listening or watching, and let us know in the comments if you're a new viewer and how much you're enjoying the show. We'd love to connect with you. Guys, if you want to connect with us in person, you got to either come to the Land of Israel. You can check out the trips that Hayuvel has to offer at serveisrael.com, or come to the Israel Summit, where all four of us and a lot of other incredible pioneers from Israel will be gathering June 9th through 11th, and we'll put the link for that in the description below. You don't want to miss it. Connect with us there in Dallas, Texas, June 9th through 11th. Link in the description below. Does anybody else here feel like we're not only like living in a movie script, but that we're like part of the script maybe too? Because I feel like watching the news in the last week, it's like every day it's like the script just takes another twist. And
Luke, can I just interrupt you really quickly?
Turn.
Talking about being a part of the script. We literally have an Israel Guys bulldozer now, D9, that was delivered from a faithful viewer and a big, somebody that's really loved the show and has been watching us for a long time now. Literally sent us this D9 to the Israel Guys after our show, 2 weeks ago.
Say, why the bulldozers, Josh?
Right, because I was so excited about the bulldozers arriving in Israel from Trump. You know, Trump sent the bulldozers, or actually allowed the bulldozers to come. Biden had stopped the bulldozers, and literally the bulldozers are now arriving in Israel. And so, along with our excitement on the matter of bulldozers arriving in Gaza to clean the mess of terrorists Gaza Lago, as it's all turning out now. And now the Israel Guys has our very own D9 here to continue the excitement of peace in the Middle East.
Well, I just want to clarify that Jeremy and I think we have joined in true friendship and partnership, so we get shared custody of that.
Shared custody of this D9.
2 weeks of the month, we get it in Judea and 2 months in Samaria.
So that's just a little excitement. I'm talking about being a part of the story. Boy, it is a wild time. With all that's going on in Gaza right now, all that's going on on the Egyptian border, all that's going on the Israeli border right now, a lot to talk about today. Luke, I know you've got kind of an order for us, and we're going to be a little bit running all over the place here, but
yeah, I say let's watch the clip, the viral clip, obviously from Trump, and that'll kick us off. Watch this video clip.
Well, I would say this, and I'm going to let that because that's Israel's decision. But as far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off, and let hell break out. I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday, and if they're not returned, all of them, not in drips and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2. Saturday at 12 o'clock, and after that, I would say all hell is going to break out.
Talk about a plot twist, or maybe we should just call it common sense. You have the president of the United States actually calling it for what it is.
Well, what I'm really, and I want to hear from you guys, Ari and Jeremy, what do you think when he says, when Trump says very clearly, all hostages are going to be out of Gaza by 12 o'clock on Saturday? And I love how he said that. It kind of felt like he just made that date up like that. The way he said it, it was like Saturday at 12 o'clock. That's what it felt.
Yeah, I got to think Friday afternoon, so that's not good. But Saturday.
Let's do Saturday. But the fact that what's going on here in Israel is my big question is because now we're seeing news come out. Trump said very clearly in that clip, every one of them, not the 2s and 3s and trickling out. He said every single one of them will be out of there. All hell is going to break loose Saturday at noon. What's going on here in Israel? I'll
tell you, for me, it's a little bit embarrassing. It's embarrassing and then beyond embarrassing. It makes me feel like Israel is like the little friend, brother of the big guy in the bar, and someone just comes and punches us in the face, kicks us where it counts, just humiliates us. And then the guy's like, you step away or I'm going to knock you out. And then the first stage was Israel saying, what he said. Ministers of Israel, what he said, Saturday, all hell's going to break loose, exactly what America said. Okay, so that was embarrassing enough. But then ultimately Trump said, well, it's ultimately up to Israel. And what did Israel say? There's differences of what was actually conveyed, but something between, well, if you release between 3 and 9 on Saturday, then we will allow the ceasefire to continue. And Trump is just saying, now, done. Like, he's speaking Middle East, and we're like vacillating and afraid. And that was my fear about Trump. Like, we cannot point at Trump other than saying a real leader, courage, conviction, good friend, good for America, blessing on Trump. My issue is with our response, and it's just feckless, and it feels spineless, and it feels like it is not a reflection of the nation. Then we are already, it's been shown to everybody in this country. You go to the front lines, we're a nation of lions ready to be unshackled. Yeah. And what are we having this leadership that's like, well, release 3, what he said. It just feels like, I don't know if you heard about this, but Israel's like trolling Hamas. There's a terrorist that murdered and raped Mahmoud Attallah, which of course makes him very beloved to Hamas, and he was on the list to be released. And Israel released a different Mahmoud Attallah, who was not as terroristic as this one, to sort of get Hamas. That's our little. It's like that's what we're doing. We're switching out. It's embarrassing, Jeremy.
When the hostages were released, and they looked like Holocaust survivors.
Yeah.
To me, that was a turning point. And it was a turning point for Trump, where he's like, all right, this is pure evil. All hell needs to break loose. And you would think that Israel, that's founded on the fake narrative of being a Holocaust product. Well, we can never allow the Holocaust to happen again. Every diplomat isn't brought to Ir David, to the city of David. They're brought to Yad Vashem to look at the Holocaust. And we're seeing evil manifest where they're taking their hostages and literally turning them into Auschwitz survivors. Trump's like, all right, that's it. And Israel still isn't able to do what needs to be done. But when you think about the Holocaust, when Germans saw that Hitler was kind of bringing Germany into ruin, there were people that tried to assassinate Hitler. Mm-hmm. There were righteous non-Jews in every country that risked their lives to protect Jews. There's not one Gazan that's tried to stop the Hamas, that's given any intel on any of the hostages. There is a society for 20 years. How long did the Nazis reign? Less than 10. There has been 20 years of total indoctrination. I heard that the USA took American taxpayers' money, paid a rapper in Gaza $3 million to create anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish hate songs in order to just permeate the culture, the mosques, the music, the television. It's an entire culture rooted in evil. Trump actually sees what they are and calling to eradicate them. And Israel, because we have an inability in our leadership to define evil as evil, they're still sort of like treading water on what to do.
Many Christians feel alone in their support for Israel, especially in a world that tries to delegitimize the Jewish people's right to exist. But you don't have to stand alone. We couldn't be more excited to announce the second annual Israel Summit, a 3-day event in Dallas, Texas, to bring together thousands of like-minded pro-Israel advocates just like yourself. June 9th through 11th, 2025, join us at the Israel Summit in Dallas, Texas, where you'll connect with passionate, like-minded individuals from around the globe. Hear from world-class Israeli speakers, including Jeremy Gimpel, Ari Abramowitz, Yishai Fleischer, and we couldn't be more excited to announce former U.S. Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman. You guys are going to gain access to resources that will empower you to stand firm in your support of Israel. You'll be empowered with cutting-edge resources and tools to help you better advocate for Israel and the Jewish people. Together, we can fight back against the negativity and hatred of anti-Semitism that's encompassing the globe. You get to stand with Israel and show the world that Israel's right to be sovereign in the entirety of their land is non-negotiable. Join us in Dallas, Texas, June 9th through 11th, 2025. It's time to make a difference. It's time to stand with Israel, and tickets are at an incredible 25% off right now. You don't want to wait. Click that link in the description below to join us at this year's Israel Summit in Dallas, Texas.
You just said that U.S. aid paid how much?
$3 million to a rapper in Gaza to make anti-Semitic rap songs.
He would have gotten $6 million if he was transitioning. Like
yeah, but he wouldn't have survived very
He
long.
wouldn't survive in Gaza. That's the first time I've ever heard that, and that's I can't even get my mind around that. What U.S. aid is to help? Don't they have like a charter or something?
I always thought USAID, because I was never into it. I just knew it was one of these organizations. But you drive around Judea and Samaria and you see the deepest illegal jihadist villages that are built, and USAID signs all over.
Literally,
them.
I went to
There's a sign
Luke and
only
I.
a mile from here in Hawara, right at the
USAID.
the roundabout. USAID, helping to build whatever in an Arab village.
Luke and I were out actually on a hiking trip where we were kind of
but
trying to uncover.
This was Canada, not USAID, wasn't it?
Was that Canadian? Yeah, that was
same
Canadian.
difference, though.
Same difference. But all these nations around the world doing the same thing USAID is doing, where they're coming in and trying to build squatter camps.
A latrine in a illegal squatter camp.
Literally built a little toilet there, with a hole in the floor. That's all it was. And they were so proud of it.
To put a
They had to
sign.
slap a
Canada,
sign on
they
it,
put
yeah.
a big sign on it. I mean, like this big. on the
Canada's
side of it.
toilet.
Canada proudly supports this toilet.
To ask the editors, put that viral clip of Josh in here.
Yeah.
Project name Humanitarian Response Plan for West Bank. Supplying and fixing mobile latrines in the Arab Al-Kahali community. Funded by Government of Canada. Thank you, Canada!
I guess they wanted to start a movement in Samaria.
With all
Play
the
on the word
audits that are
movement. Go
going
ahead,
through
yes.
now, $2.1 billion has been paid to Gaza. And not only that, they actually built a cement factory in Gaza. And what did they do with that cement? They built the largest terror tunnel infrastructure in world history. And so the Biden administration has been funding the terror while putting an arms embargo on Israel. And all of a sudden now, everything is switched upside down. And we have an American president saying, just unleash hell on these evil Islamo-Nazis.
Well, you're talking about the amount that they sent to Gaza that also has just been uncovered this week, that they also dropped a mass amount here in Judea and Samaria right before Biden left. I mean, I don't know the exact amount yet, but it was a massive amount.
I'll tell you the
Millions,
numbers. 734 terrorists have been released in this hostage deal. And totally, they've accumulated 141 million shekels. Over half of the terrorists released now have over $1 million
millionaires.
shekels in their bank account. They've become millionaires by being terrorists. How? American tax money.
If that doesn't make you angry as an American citizen, if you're watching this, then I don't know what will. But thankfully, there's some good people in the American government actively working on this. Okay, so for context, Trump says that Israel should unleash all hell if all hostages are not released by noon on Saturday, right? We're 2 days away from that as of the recording of this right now. All hostages, not just 9, not 17, right? So then, at the
Keep
end,
in mind, just take a step back. Remember, Hamas started this by saying we are indefinitely ceasing all hostage release. Then
Correct.
Trump
So they're
does the Trump
violating,
thing,
right.
and says you're going to not only not release none of them, you're going to release all of them,
Right.
And they're like, we'll just go back to the deal and release the 3 of the 9 that we were supposed to release on the deal, right? So that's like the negotiating technique. But I don't get the feeling that in this situation, Trump was negotiating. I feel like he has actual righteous indignation. I think he has a really
anybody
good
should.
heart.
If you saw the pictures of the 3 men that came out of Gaza last week, it was horrific, especially the comparison showing them what they looked like before they were captured and when they were released. Like they were unrecognizable.
Not only that,
We're
I
talking
saw a
about
picture of
Holocaust
Yarden
survivors.
Bibas' eyes, and they conveyed absolute broken, shattered. He's released, and his family is murdered, and he's got full lifetime PTSD. The trauma that these released hostages are going to go through is beyond anything we could possibly imagine.
Yeah. Here's the good news, Luke, that I was just thinking about is,
go ahead.
Yeah, no, but the fact is that Israel is doing something in light of it. Looks like they're getting ready for something.
According to some, it's like the biggest military buildup the IDF has had since October 7th.
Right. So this is all balancing with they're playing this something weird with the hostage saying Trump said all of them. They're saying 3 to 9. But the facts on the ground are
let's
they're
look at
building
what
up.
Israel said now in response. Because so Trump, Hamas violates the deal. Trump says release all the hostages, and then but then at the end he says obviously it's up to Israel, which is what we have said all along, right? Basically, America should just say it's up to Israel, right? Israel should be an independent, strong, sovereign nation. Unfortunately, Israel struggles constantly with not being able to stand on their own 2 feet and make strong decisions, right? So Netanyahu has now come out and said that yes, they're going to hold Hamas to some kind of ultimatum, but what that ultimatum is it release all the hostages? Is it release the 9 living hostages that are left? There's 17 left that were supposed to be part of this first ceasefire phase, right? And they're saying 9 of them are alive, 8 are dead. A lot of people think Israel's going to demand the 9 living hostages. Hamas has obviously come out and said that they refuse Trump's demands of releasing them all, but they will release the 3 that they were supposed to release. But Israel said if Hamas doesn't conform to their ultimatum, which it's hard to say, like, is it 3? Is it 9? So, but Israel is preparing to unleash all hell on them. So I guess the hope is that Israel will hold them to a very strong ultimatum.
But look, it makes me actually think about this past week's Torah portion where God says, I took them out of Egypt by way of the wilderness where there was no turning back. Otherwise, they would see war and want to go back. It's like God understood the nature of humanity, definitely of the Jews at that time, and said they may opt for the slavery they know than the freedom that they don't. And here's Trump is coming to the table saying, new game, build Gaza Lago. Hamas, we're about to wipe you off the map. And Israel's like, but what will we do without this enemy that we've been struggling with all of these years? We need to have them. Let's go back to the same sort of discussion and quibbling about, no, you release 3, you release 9. And Trump is like, wipe them out. Wipe them out, New Deal. Like, we need that boldness. And that's why Jeremy said on the last show, and I think it's true, Netanyahu, what I can say about him is I really do believe that his heart is for the best thing for Israel. He wants the best for his nation, but he is of the Saul-like king. For people that don't know what I'm referring to, refer to the book of Judges. You know, but Saul is this sort of pragmatic, practical, putting his finger to the wind type of guy, and we are now, the nation is fully primed and ready for a Davidic leadership, and that's what's up to bat. We just don't know who it is, where it's coming from, but it's coming.
Israel literally has the opportunity of a lifetime. That for the first time in how many decades their biggest thing that they don't have to think about is how America is going to react to their decisions. And former Israeli security minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, he had this to say. He said, quote, "The Israeli government is on its way to another historic missed opportunity. After receiving backing from President Trump to bring hell upon Gaza if Hamas does not release all the hostages, the government intends to settle for the release of only 3 hostages under a reckless deal that includes the release of hundreds of terrorist murderers from prison while continuing to supply fuel and aid to the Strip." So obviously he's saying the same thing. Like, why would Israel not take this opportunity? I mean, does anybody have thoughts? Like
I do.
Like, is there something else going on behind the scenes here that
to
we don't
me,
know about?
there is a bright light of hope, maybe at the end of a tunnel. Meaning, had we just said, all right, well, time to eradicate Hamas, then is Trump the leader or is Netanyahu the leader? The fact that Netanyahu isn't taking this opportunity means that Netanyahu really believes it is in Israel's best interest right now to go back to releasing the 3 hostages. And what he's saying, and I think it's a true perspective, is that we have time. We're going to eradicate Gaza. We're going to rebuild. We're going to relocate the Gazans. Right now, his focus maybe is to actually release these 9 left hostages that are there and then demolish Gaza. But he's saying, okay, we have time. If Trump says by 12 o'clock Saturday, Netanyahu's like, we're an eternal people. We have plenty of time. God did not bring us back to the land of Israel to move by 12 o'clock on Saturday. We have time. We're going to get 3 more out now. Maybe we'll get 9 out. Maybe we'll get 6 out. Maybe we'll get, meaning.
Well, you say that because you think he's not going to get all of them? You don't think Hamas would give them all under that heavy hand?
I think that once Israel unleashes hell on Gaza, everyone will go.
That's why they say that Gaza is releasing signs of life now and giving out messages of all these different, because they're saying if you attack us, we still have all of this life here. And Jeremy, I think that's sort of that's a very generous perspective on Netanyahu, and I think it's possibly the right thing. And the only precedent that I sort of have in seeing that maybe he's playing also a game, not just the long game, but a game, was the Godfather move. You remember the Godfather move where he goes to the UN as he's speaking in the UN. Right, the beepers, just total one of the greatest historic assaults out of a movie on Hezbollah. So maybe he's playing this game that's making us look particularly weak, and then we're going to come around. But I still don't think, even if that's true, that we need to play games.
Well, I want to tell you another perspective from the Torah. The people of Israel experienced the 10 plagues, and Egypt looked like Gaza looked after the hail, after the death of the firstborn. It was just decimated. All their crops were eaten. Everything was just gone. It was like the end of that civilization. And then what does Pharaoh do? Pharaoh kicks them out and says, you must leave now. Right. And so are they really liberated? They're still just listening to their taskmaster. The taskmaster is kicking them out of Gaza. So slaves are listening to the taskmaster kicking them out of Egypt. And so when did they actually become liberated? They're standing at the sea. Egypt's army is coming after them, and there's nowhere to go. And only when they went into the water and there was no going back. That is complete faith. And so Israel is just about to embark onto a place where there's no turning back. Once you unleash hell and Egypt's military is right there on the border, who knows what might happen? It may ignite a war across the region, but Israel will eventually need to take a stand where there's no turning back. And at that point, we will liberate ourselves from the past.
So I just need to weigh in here with the words of Amos the prophet, Amos the prophet. Thus says the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Gaza, and for 4 I will not revoke its punishment, because they carried away a captive, a complete exile, to deliver them up to Edom, America, the West. So I will send a fire upon the wall of Gaza, and it shall devour its palaces, etc. Like, this is what the prophets spoke about, exactly what's playing out right now. And I think as we see Egypt mobilizing in this historic way, which is, of course, evoking in Israel our memories of the Yom Kippur War, we're about to see the fulfillment of exactly that.
The reason why that's so important is because the Bible is the only foundation for truth in the world. And this was written 2,000-3,000 years ago, saying that Gaza will have captives and release them under the threat of the Western world. And we're watching that unfold before our eyes. The only thing we can do is rely on the Torah. Meaning from 1948 to 1967, Gaza belonged to Egypt and Judea and Samaria was under the control of Jordan. Why was there no Palestinian state created then? Why didn't they create a Palestinian state? Because there was no such thing. The entire thing is a fiction. The whole thing is a lie. And so now what's done is this ultimatum has exposed a lot of truth. All of the bring them home now hostage demonstrations that were also funded, by the way, with U.S. aid were now not for the hostages, it was to topple the right-wing government. Where are they now supporting this new ultimatum from Trump? You don't hear a word from Kaplan and from the Bring Them Home Now camp. The second thing that is exposed is the Gazans. They're living right now. They used to be an open-air prison. It used to be the world's concentration camp. Now they're living in tents in the winter, and the Pope just condemned Trump's relocation plan, calling it a crisis. A crisis if we relocate the Gazans. It's like, it's a crisis to leave them there right now, but it's exposing that none of this has to do with the Gazans. All of this has to do with, is the Bible true? Are the Jewish people the chosen people? Is the land of Israel a chosen land? Because it's now open and it's up now for discussion. If you side with Israel, you're siding with the truth. If you're against Israel, then you're against the truth.
Josh Waller, it makes me think of this video you guys did that every time I watch this music video, it brings tears to my eyes. I always call it Line in the Sand, but it's not called that. What's it called? I Believe. It's called I Believe.
Luke and I
We're
created
unrecognizable in that video. Yeah. So long ago.
It was like
it was so long
years ago,
but it was so beautiful, because what is really happening right now is God giving everybody in the world an opportunity to decide, to show, to demonstrate, not with words, but with actions, where they stand, because there will be attribute for attribute. It's not a punishment. It's just a consequence of what, for example, Ireland and Spain, they come and they sided with saying that Israel are perpetrating genocide and the Genocide Convention. And part of their laws are that legally they need to accept refugees from genocide. So now I think legally 2 million of these jihadist Philistines in Gaza need to be sent to Spain and Ireland as genocide refugees. It's in their own laws. We need to there will be attribute for attribute. And the BBC and these foreign European countries that are sympathizing with Hamas, they're going to face the consequences of the very jihad that they're protecting.
Well, not only that, you can see that when you align yourself with Israel, you'll be blessed. And when you don't, you'll be cursed. Check out this video from Marco Rubio and what he just said right now.
What I am saying is common sense. You're a visitor. You're not even an American. You're a foreign national. You're here because we gave you a visa to be here temporarily, and now you're out there defending and supporting Hamas, a terrorist organization. You need to go. That's what this resolution asks the administration to do. And I hope we can get a vote on the Senate, so at least everyone will know where everybody here stands.
What they're realizing is that an enemy of Israel is an enemy of freedom. An enemy of Israel is an enemy of America. And so it's not just about Israel and Gaza and what's happening there with the Hamas. It's a much larger move. And if you are aligning yourself with freedom, with truth, with the Bible, with the blessing, with Israel, you will be blessed in your country and around.
Yeah, it's a great gauge, right? You were even saying to me the other day about Germany's immigration law, that in their application for immigration, it says, what do you think about Israel? And if someone's like, it should be destroyed by jihad, they're like, okay, thank you, refused, because they understand who they're importing and who they're not.
Jeremy, you just said something just a minute ago about that this whole thing that's happening in Gaza is the line in the sand. You talked about it, Ari. This could expand into a broader regional war. Right now, thus far, Israel has fought on 7 different fronts that have not included Jordan and Egypt, right? What's going down in Jordan first, maybe, and then we'll get to what's going down massively in Egypt. But I think what's happening in Jordan is really interesting because we just saw the king of Jordan with Trump, and it looked slightly different than the situation we saw with Bibi and Trump. It looked like with Bibi and Trump, you had this like hug and embrace and smiles and like, hey, this is amazing. We're making history together.
The king of Jordan goes to the White House. He made a public speech rejecting outright Trump's plan about Gaza. But then when he showed up at the White House,
he's like, hey, Mr. Trump, like different. He's like shaking in his boots.
We have a very special relationship, Mr. Trump.
Right. Do you have a video on that, Luke?
Yeah, do you want to play?
Mr. President, I truly believe that with all the challenges that we have in the Middle East, that I finally see somebody that can take us across the finish line to bring stability, peace, and prosperity to all of us in the region. And it is, I think, our collective responsibility in the Middle East to continue to work with you, to support you, to achieve those lofty goals. So I'm very delighted to be here. And as you said, sir, we've got some very interesting discussions ahead of us.
Very good. Very good. Thank you very much.
So if it wasn't for America and Israel, there wouldn't be a Jordan as it's known today. That's just a fact. They have propped Jordan up, and they've allowed it to succeed because you have about 40% rule the rest. So that's the rule, the 70-60, right? And so what the 70-60%, the majority of the country hate Israel like you would see in Gaza. That kind of hatred is what actually rules in Jordan. And that's why you see him shaking his boots, because he's trying to hold something together that's hardly holdable.
Well, the truth is, Trump keeps on talking about moving the Gazans to Egypt and moving them to Jordan. That's still on Israel's borders. I would much rather move them to Indonesia. I heard there's an island outside of Saudi Arabia that's bigger than Gaza, but it's uninhabited. Move them to an island where they're kind of surrounded by water. All they can do is dig tunnels into the ocean, meaning I want them to be removed far away from the land of Israel and not on Israel's borders on the west or the east.
I always have an issue with that because I feel like our job as Jews in the world is to eradicate evil. I'm not saying to eradicate them, but I'm saying the evil itself within them. And that means to crush and sublimate the concept of jihad, to strip that, so to expose the falsehood in that so thoroughly that they are no longer the threat, that they are no longer that evil. Like America did it to the Japanese. The Japanese were a formidable foe. But America so thoroughly obliterated Japan that now they're an ally and they're a friend. It's possible to do that, but by uprooting the poison of the philosophy, not out sending them to an island off the Gibraltar.
The only way to uproot the philosophy is by settling the land of Israel. If we just align ourselves with the plan that is laid out in the Bible. Everyone said moving the embassy to Jerusalem. Trump said that he got endless phone calls from world leaders saying there'll be riots in the streets, wars are going to break out, you can't move the embassy to Jerusalem. And then Trump said, no, I can do things differently. Where Israel, Jerusalem belong to the Jewish people, it's their eternal capital. I'm moving America's embassy to Jerusalem. There wasn't a single riot. He said, I'm going to do things differently. The Abraham Accords. He's thinking in a different way that is much more aligned with the vision of the Bible. And from that, only good can come. Evil will be uprooted once we take control over Gaza, rebuild it, settle it, declare sovereignty over it. That's what will ultimately bring security to the region.
Imagine being part of a global community united by one heart for Israel, where learning Torah and the Bible isn't just a study, but it's a way of life. Introducing the Land of Israel Fellowship from our amazing partners and friends, Jeremy Gimpel and Aria Bramwitz. Every week, believers from over 50 countries gather together as part of this virtual fellowship. We're talking about families, small communities, people from all walks of life with a shared vision to transform our lives through the teachings of the Torah. This weekly gathering is more than just education. It's a family Bible study group of prayer, connection, and spiritual growth, all anchored in the land of Israel itself. Straight from the heart of Judea, these are pioneers paving both a physical and spiritual path towards Jerusalem, a house of prayer for all nations. Each week, hundreds of people gather on Zoom with Jeremy Gimpel, Aria Bramwitz, Jeremy's wife Tehila, Ari's wife Shayna, and hundreds of people just like yourself to study the ancient truths of the Bible together. If you take the Torah seriously, you can join the Land of Israel Fellowship, where Torah, prayer, and community come together to change lives. To join the Land of Israel Fellowship, visit thelandofisrael.com or click the link in the description below.
What I'm looking at right now is the problem of advancing that number of Israel, the enemies of Israel and these neighboring countries, is going to provide even a potential for a large-scale war in the future. That's why, I agree with Ari that you don't want to just spread that evil to the world. But what we're looking at right now, you're looking at Jordan has a population of 11 million. Egypt has a population of 112 million. Massive entity there. And you got these two smack on Israel's borders. And they're because of the hatred in both of those countries towards Israel, I could foresee this developing into, like you said, a regional. If those two countries join the other 7 fronts that are against Israel right now, that's a massive threat to Israel.
I don't see Jordan as a problem. I see Egypt as potentially a problem. But I think it's interesting that you see the king of Jordan going from a public speech where he said, "This is outrageous. Jordan absolutely rejects Trump's plan," and I believe he even said, let me be clear, Jordan will in no way take any of the Arabs from Gaza into the country of Jordan. Then he goes to the White House. What's the first thing that happens? He said,
yes,
I'd like to announce right here that Jordan is going to take 2,000 children from Gaza into Jordan. And then he finishes and he says, quote, "With all the challenges we have in the Middle East, I finally see somebody that can take us across the finish line to bring stability, peace, and prosperity." And as he's leaving the White House, when asked about Trump's plan for Gaza, all he said was, "Let's not get ahead of ourselves." So he literally went from outright rejection and he moved all the way across the line. And now he's like, okay, whatever you want, Mr. President, because
2,000 children include their parents. It's not that they're like send off children separating their families.
It's true.
Meaning, so those words are significant. And I'm not as worried about Jordan. What I've seen are videos of what Egypt is amassing on Israel's border.
That's the big concern. Because we just saw a video, let's watch it now. This video is unreal. We were talking about tanks upon tanks upon tanks. And honestly, let's describe this before we watch it, is they're not allowed there. Israel has a ceasefire or a peace agreement with Egypt that goes all the way back to 1979, where Israel pulled out of the Sinai, right? That there was a time frame, started in 1979. They completely pulled out by 1982. And then Egypt's owned that since then. But they have an ABC zones, just like here in Judea and Samaria, where there was like a progress of what the forces they could have in each one of these different zones. And that C zone, which is the zone on the Israel-Egyptian border there, meant no military force. The only thing that's allowed in that C zone, that immediate range of the border, is police force.
I've never seen so many tanks. Check this out.
I like the caption on this video. On X, it said "easy target for Israel if they make any mistakes." So the Israel Army,
I also saw that.
Israel Army radio reports the Egyptian defense minister ordered military brigades in the Sinai and Rafah regions to maintain the highest levels of readiness for war. So,
I mean, keep in mind, Egypt has about 3,500 tanks. Israel has 2,500 tanks. Okay, that's just on tanks. Egypt has a larger air force, and that's why Israel has to be always acutely aware that when we're talking about Egypt versus Israel, we're also in a region of 23 Arab states, in a region also where there's Russia and China sending weapons to Iran. Like, the degree to which we are overwhelmingly outnumbered when it comes to every single single metric needs to be very sobering. And that's why.
Well, how many Jews do you have? You got about 7 million Jews, the actual Jewish people within Israel, and then you got about 400 million Arabs surrounding you. So that's the odds.
At least, right. I mean, just in Egypt alone, you said it's 112. right?
Sitting on right smack on Israel's
Right.
border
No,
there.
but we're the Goliath.
Right. And you got less
Right.
tanks, less people, your military capacity is very like targeted and strategic, but boy, they've got a massive force there that honestly America's built.
Yeah,
America has built that.
that's why the prophets of Israel say, "You are my witness, Israel." The very existence, forget individual wars of miraculous nature, the existence of Israel every single day, the fact we continue to exist is a testimony to the God of Israel and his sovereignty. Period. We shouldn't be existing at all.
I'm looking forward to a war with Egypt. That's the truth. The Sinai belongs to Israel. The Sinai is a part of the promised land. We were given it
You're
back
assuming
in
that if we win this
1967.
war, then we'll, like, God wins these wars for us. He's like, Israel, here's it. Here's it.
And
No,
then-
take it back. Let's be friends.
Exactly. But maybe now times are changing. I think that slowly but surely right now, Israel is keeping its troops in Lebanon. It's keeping its position there so far. We haven't yet received, I haven't given back over to ISIS or the new jihadists that are there. But what's really interesting is I've looked at like the people that are coming out against the hostage deal, coming out against Israel. You have the woke progressives, you have the Pope, and of course you have the jihadists. And you think like, what
Their
is
common
the
denominator
connection between these? I mean, the wokes, Gaza is a racist, homophobic, militaristic, anti-democratic, religiously dogmatic, violent civilization. And it's loved more than any other place in the world. And at the same time, you have the religious institution of the Catholic Church and the jihadists. All of these forces are lined up against Israel. There is no common thread except one. Do you know what it is?
I was going to share my favorite midrash.
Okay.
The midrash is that Ishmael went to Esau. Now, Ishmael, we know, is the father of the Arab world. Esau is the father of Rome and the West and all of the pogroms, the Inquisitions, the Holocaust, the Catholic Church, right? And so Ishmael goes to Esau and says, here's the plan. You kill your brother and I'll kill my brother, and together we're going to take over the world. Meaning Ishmael is going to kill Isaac and Esau will kill Jacob. No more Jewish people, and we're going to take over the world. Esau loved the idea. They make a pact, but it says that in his heart, Esau said, once we do this, Ishmael, I'm going to kill you. And Ishmael says, once we do this, Esau, I'm going to kill you. Now go to they're the archetypes of these nations. Now it makes sense. There's no love there. They just have shared, deep, visceral, theological hatred against Israel. And once they do that, then they're going to want to go at each other.
Well, the woke don't have any theology at all, but I think that's really the point. They are an anti-God movement. The Catholic Church has taken whatever we believe into the Bible and just totally manipulated it into its own lies. And jihad is, of course, another replacement theology based on lies. All three of them are an anti-God, anti-Bible, anti-truth movements, and they've all aligned. Why? Because only Israel represents the truth. And as we continue to move forward into this era of AI, where it will be harder and harder to know what's true, what's real, what's augmented reality. Someone told me that they asked ChatGPT, convince me that you love me.
Wow.
And
Now they're engaged.
They did a really good job of really convincing them, wow, this is not just this thing really loves me. Like, felt like really good, and it's like it's only getting more sophisticated, it's only getting better. And so the lies are going to continue to spread. The only thing that will anchor the world in truth is the truth of the land of Israel and the truth of the Jewish people's sovereignty in the land of Israel. And that's why these forces that are based upon, I don't even know what the Catholic Church is based upon, the largest pedophile ring in the world, the evil of the Notre Dame Church, where they depict the Jews with the venom and the snake blinding the Jews. That's the synagogue at the entrance to their house of prayer, is such an anti-Jewish movement. So the only
Again,
thing,
you're talking about the Catholic Church. We know many Catholics that are pro-Israel that are wonderful people. We're talking about the established institution.
when
the
the
history.
Pope comes out condemning Trump's plan to relocate the Gazans, what is he exposing? He's exposing that he doesn't care about the Gazans. They're living in tents in the middle of the winter. Can we please just relocate them and give them housing somewhere else? No, it's a crisis. They are a crisis.
And it's him joining the war, joining the jihad war, which is it doesn't make any sense. Again, it doesn't make any sense that the Pope, what does the Pope care anyway? Why is he joining a Hamas style war against Israel? He's pro two state, for goodness sakes. He's been pushing that ever ever since he's getting his picture with Biden or whatever, saying that they want to see a two-state
Well, there's
solution.
a reason that the Pope looks like in a costume sort of way, the high priest of Israel on the Day of Atonement, because fundamentally, theologically, they believe that God has annulled his covenant with Israel, meaning the Jewish people, and chosen them as the new Israel. Then the more we are persecuted and lose in the world, the more it advances and bolsters their fundamentally flawed theological philosophy that they are the new Israel and God has betrayed his covenant.
Still doesn't make any
with us.
sense to me, though, even with that they would be in alignment with Hamas.
Well, not only that, meaning who's the authority? The authority of truth isn't the Bible anymore. It's what the Pope says. He's the authority of truth. That's why the Catholic Church has actually moved closer and closer to wokeism than anything else. Not that that has anything to do with the Bible or the Torah, but he's the authority of the truth.
Well, because if you say that, if it's against the Bible, then they would. How could you're so directly against the Bible if you agree with the two-state kind of ideology that the woke world created?
Well, that is what this war is all about. This war is ultimately, in its core, most fundamental level, a war on truth. What is the truth of this world? And as we go deeper and deeper into this new era that we're embarking on, the truth is going to be very scarce. And the only testimony to the truth of what reality is Israel. That's why we are the witness.
Can we do a really pessimistic thing really quickly?
Pessimistic.
Yeah, it's not really rare for us, but it's actually very rare for us to be pessimistic. But I'm just looking, okay, if this didn't go, what if Saturday noon? What if all hell does break loose? And what if this goes? I mean, all of us around this table are kind of like hoping that we do finish Hamas. But what if it sparks that regional war that you just talked about? And what if Egypt decides they don't like that, and that's why they're massing troops on the border? And Iran partners with them, along with the forces of Lebanon that are left, and the forces of Jordan that are shaky right now on the fence. It's another 6-day war kind of moment.
What's pessimistic about that?
Well,
to me,
what
that's
I'm saying,
the most optimistic. That's the most optimistic.
optimistic
That's
point.
right now.
Ye of little faith.
If we say 6-day war, it's
I'd say
optimistic.
the odds are still in Israel's favor because the one factor, 400 million against 7 million, the one factor that is on Israel's side is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
You're not going
None
anywhere.
Of these other 400 million people have.
Right,
I was going to lead to the positive things later. I was
Let's
just wanting
keep
to be
in
pessimistic
mind
for a
that
minute.
ultimately Trump is America first by his own volition.
Yeah.
He's America first. And I think there's a chance that if this does happen, because we're sitting here doing the show, and 2 days from now could be one of the greatest wars in world history. I'm not saying that that's going to happen.
No,
but that very well may happen. And if that massive coalition of nations comes against Israel, Trump may be like, Israel, you're on your own right now to some degree. It's not clear that America would go in, and then Israel will say, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And then we'll have no choice but to put our faith where it belongs.
Well, we didn't finish our pessimistic list of things that could happen. It doesn't end with Iran. There's much broader axis than that.
Sure.
Iran's like the little guy.
Oh, yeah.
That axis that is aligned with Iran is much larger.
Talking
and if it
Russia,
starts dominoing
China,
up that line,
Turkey.
Iran doesn't stop with Iran. This little domino line that's really, the dominoes are set up like this, and Gaza's just that first tip. Gaza, then to what? I mean, if it hits Iran and Israel does, and there's a lot of news right now that Israel is planning to do that at some point. We don't know when, and that's the highest the highest sensitive thing to talk about in Israel probably right now is those details. That's on a high level. And we'll be all surprised at whatever happens because they're not talking about that, obviously. But if those dominoes all fall, we're literally talking about a world war that could just be set off by Saturday noon.
Sooner rather than later, Syria is in shambles. Hezbollah is destroyed. Hamas is practically gone. Iran has never been weaker. If there was ever a time for war, it would be right now. And that's why Trump is saying unleash all hell, because we got your back. And if there was ever a time that Israel could actually just annihilate the evil, eradicate it from the land, and start a new era in the Middle East, because Israel could have been located in the Bahamas. We are strategically located in the darkest region in the world, surrounded by dictators, by tyrants, by jihad, by hate, because we're meant to be ultimately a light to these nations. Now, sometimes the only light we need to bring is right before a tank releases its missile, there's a little flash of light that comes. Sometimes that's the light we need to bring. Sometimes the light needs to be the light of Torah. But right now, if war needs to happen, there's a time for war and there's a time for peace.
Right.
And right now we have the backing. There's no arms embargo. We've been given the Moab missiles, bigger missiles than Israel has ever had before. So if that's what needs to happen, Israel needs to have the courage and faith to go to war.
I mean, let's just keep in mind that this war probably will not be just regional. Like China has these ultrasonic, intercontinental ballistic missiles that America cannot defend by their own admission. This very well could be a real global war that, because you're saying the Middle East, all of these jihadist countries are at an all-time weakness. That's true.
That was my
But
question.
we're also talking about nations like Iran and China coming together, and Russia and China coming together. Like, this could be a lot greater than we could imagine.
My instincts are that China has no real spiritual ties to the land of Israel. They're not Abraham, they're not Isaac, they're not Jacob, they're not Ishmael, they're not Esav. The Catholic Church has real ties to this land, whether they earned it or not. The Muslim world has a real tie to this land. There's a real theological, spiritual battle over this land. Japan, China, Taiwan, they're not a part of that covenant.
Yes,
They're
but
not
there
a
is
part
an
of it.
alignment of interests that even if it's not about their ties to Israel or interest in this at all, Trump is coming into office. The gig is up. China may realize, like, this is not going well with him. This is the time to make a preemptive attack and make it around that. It doesn't need to be because of an interest in the biblical anything.
Well, maybe now you can understand Netanyahu's purpose. Netanyahu's purpose is to say, listen, just release 3 hostages. I don't want to unleash this world war. And so he's always been the Saul. He's always been the one that wasn't able to finish the job, always the one kicking the can down the road. He thinks time is on our side. The more time that we buy, the stronger Israel will be. Let's not launch into World War III just yet.
That's what it's about. I think he has a certain clearer, more broad perspective from where he's sitting, maybe than Ari does. I'm like, come! Wipe Hamas off the map. And he's like, hold up, zoom out a little bit.
See what's behind us.
Do you want the entire world to have hundreds of nuclear weapons? Like, that's what he sees. But I think at a certain point, you just have to do what you have to do and leave the rest in God's hands. Otherwise, when you trickle down, release 3 terrorists. It's just, you can't play that game. You have to just act with character, truth, faith, and integrity.
So 2 things I'll say about predictions for this Saturday, whether we're talking about a global World War III or we're talking about 3 hostages being released in exchange for terrorists, whether Israel unleashes all hell on Gaza and finishes them. Just 2 things I saw that is interesting. Actually, Trump talked about this too, is that the last 3 hostages that came out of Gaza have shed an entirely new light on the situation there. And that is, Trump mentioned this, that he said, obviously Hamas released the hostages first that seemed to be in the best health, the best condition. But these last 3 guys that came out in such horrific conditions, that probably means that any other living hostages in Gaza, which right now they think there's 12, at least 12 that are like confirmed based off of the testimony. Those have been released. They're in horrific condition and time is ticking. So like something needs to happen very soon. So personally, I think maybe Hamas will release 3. Best case scenario, they release like 9 hostages this Saturday. Obviously, best case scenario, Israel unleashes all hell and finishes Hamas as well, starting this Saturday and hopefully very quickly too. Something I thought that was interesting, Jeremy, you were talking about the Torah portion, and I think this could be an amazing insight, or I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Israel was basically kicked out of Egypt in the end, right? They were forced out. They go into the Red Sea. Looks like all is lost. This is like classic storytelling script, right, for a movie. The all is lost moment. They're in the Red Sea, right? But what happens when they put their faith in God and they start coming out the other side of the Red Sea? That's the moment that Egypt is obliterated. Egypt is absolutely destroyed. So I just wonder if we're like maybe really close to that moment when Hamas is obliterated. We're like really close to that. Looks like all is lost type of scenario. And then God steps in and Hamas is completely destroyed.
Well, I'll tell you, my answer to that would be right before, when Moses first goes to Pharaoh and says, let my people go. And then Pharaoh doubles down, makes their work harder.
Yeah.
And Moses goes back to God and said, what have you done? You've made their job even harder and you haven't even saved them. And then what is God's response? God says, just wait. And now you'll see what I'm going to do. And that is the perspective that we need to have. Once people are saying, all right, hostages need to be released by 12 o'clock on Saturday, our vision becomes very narrow and focused about, okay, what's going to happen 12 p.m. Saturday? But it's like, no, there's a big process that's happening here. Israel is a work in progress. All of us are works in progress. This show is a work in progress. Everything that we're doing is a work in progress, and things that are in progress need time. And that's why Hashem says, listen, now you will see broaden your perspective. Where we were 1 year ago today looked like all was lost. Where we are now, we've never been in a stronger position in the Middle East.
Yeah, I also think that when you look at the beautiful miracles that God has done for Israel thus far, I feel like anyone with any sort of sober-minded intellectual honesty would look at the situation and say, God is with those people. But just like the Egyptians saw the sea part and Israel go in, and they saw the muddy ground, and if they were able to, for a moment, put their visceral hatred of the nation of Israel aside, they would know that their wheels were going to get caught in that mud and their greatest strength would become their greatest weakness, but they were too caught up in their hatred. And I think we're going to see a very similar thing right now. So rather than give my prophetic insight, which is worth 0, I will give what Ezekiel said, Yechezkel, in Kaf He 25. Thus says the Lord God, because the Philistines acted revengefully and took vengeance with malice of soul to destroy with perpetual enmity. Therefore, thus says the Lord God, behold, I will stretch out my hand against the Philistines, and I will cut off the Cherethites and destroy the rest of the seacoast. I will execute great vengeance upon them with wrathful rebukes. Then they will know that I am the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon them. That's what we're about to see.
Amazing.
You think he's going to use bulldozers? That's what I was thinking when you were reading that. I was like, so we were, the negative parts of earlier. I think the positive are is that God's made a way for Israel every time. God's never let Israel's still here. Yes, they've gone through hard times, but God was with Israel and has preserved Israel through everything.
Say God literally pushed the Egyptian army into the sea.
And maybe that's why we need to have weak leadership at this point in time. Yeah. Because we look at our leadership and we're like, please be strong, and it's weak and it's weak and it's weak. And then we see, where does our real strength come from? From God, who is the ultimate leader. And we're about to see real decisiveness.
Well, and that's the entire story of the children of Israel for thousands of years, is that God always brought them to a point where where it was like no doubt about it, that it was a miracle and that it was his hand at work at the end of the day.
Where we say, our eyes are to the mountains, from where will our redemption come? That we don't see a possible way out. And then the sea parts.
Amazing.
God and the D9 is going to make a big
difference.
That.
I just love it.
I love that
thing.
Keep it
here.
It's just a huge. I think
it's not going to leave Josh's
it's like the
office,
physical. This is in my office forever now. I think it's just.
It's cool that you have an office.
It's a physical reality of like the movement that's happening. It's what Trump's saying here is direct. It's exactly what Ezekiel's saying. This thing is going to be there's going to be judgment on this terrorism, and it's going to be finished. It's going to be wiped clean. That's going to happen. It's just a matter of time, and hopefully that time is Saturday at noon. But we don't know yet. But like Jeremy said, we're on for the long haul here. Israel's an eternal people. They're not a Saturday at noon. You're going to be here. You're going to continue to succeed. It doesn't matter what Iran says. It doesn't matter what North Korea says. It doesn't matter what Russia says. It doesn't matter what China says. It doesn't even matter what Trump says. You're going to be here, whether you're friends or your enemies, whatever they decide. And that's the eternal Jewish people. And that's what we celebrate here at the Israel Guys, I think, and along with you guys is that's our real view. Politics come and go, and leaders come and go. This land and this people, they're just here. And as Ezekiel says, to quote Ezekiel, we like Ezekiel, it's not moving. You're rooted and grounded here, not to be moved, right? There's that Amos. Amos says that.
I will plant them upon their land.
Yeah.
And today is actually today is Tu B'Shvat.
True, yeah.
Today, as we're recording, it's Tu B'Shvat, which is the birthday of the trees. And it's weird because this is the time that's sort of the least birthday. They really look very much barren and empty, but we know that within them the sap is starting to churn and to move, and the new life is coming forth. And man is a tree of the field. And I think that is a little bit of what's perhaps happening in the nation as a whole. There's a great rebirthing happening.
Yeah. We're going to go plant trees together this afternoon, by the way.
Oh, that's beautiful.
We're all going out.
Well, I do want to say something to our listeners. If you want to understand something of the prophetic realities of Israel and the unfolding redemption of Israel in person, you have to come to the Israel Summit this year. Ari's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Josh is going to be there. Luke is going to be there. It's in June. It's in Texas. It's the heart of America. So connecting the heart of Israel to the heart of America, you really need to come.
Link in the description below, guys. You want to get tickets right now. They're on sale. I will also say that if you guys want to get more Ari and Jeremy every week, two incredible Orthodox Jewish rabbis from the land of Israel, the land of Judea, by the way, the heart of Judea, you need to join the Land of Israel Fellowship. It's weekly Torah, weekly insights from the Bible, straight from the biblical heartland of Israel. You can find out more about the Land of Israel Fellowship at thelandofisrael.com. We'll also put that link in the description below. Thank you guys so much for being here. Make sure you subscribe, follow along. We're having so much fun on this weekly podcast, and we hope you guys are too. Would love to hear your thoughts about the topics, about the show in the comment section below. You can write to us, write to our email. As always, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what's happening in Israel. We'll be back very soon here at the Land of Israel Network and the Israel Guys.